So once again, we're very excited to support your work. And we really appreciated the opportunity to see such a broad range of projects going on, as well as those we're helping with general operating. And we were very excited to meet some new nonprofits to our process and to the Community Foundation this cycle. So we have 35 grant awards going out this cycle, which is really exciting. And my computer will cooperate. There we go. Okay. So you would think for those that have been doing this with us for a while, you recognize this screen. And every now and then we hope that we don't have to include this screen, but we still do. So we need to emphasize that when you are talking about the Community Foundation in announcements, we are the Community Foundation of Middlesex County, not the Middlesex Community Foundation, the Middlesex Foundation. And if you use just the foundation, that gets really confusing because there are a lot of both public and private foundations out there. So when you're using the name of the Community Foundation, please at least once use the full thing. And then if you're doing a written announcement, the full name, and then after that, you can use just Community Foundation or CFMC, but there are many community foundations around the country and quite a few just in the state of Connecticut. So it's very helpful for you and for us to ensure that you are including the geographic connection, which is obviously our place name. The letters that you receive give suggestions of how to refer to the Community Foundation if you're doing PR announcements or social media announcements. We also have a PDF toolkit on our website that gives a variety of suggestions and ways to talk about your grant. We're also here to help. So if you have questions, if you're new to this piece of it, of acknowledging a grant or acknowledging a funder, whether it's us or any of your funders, we're always happy to help if we can. Feel free to email Mary or myself. And we're happy to field some questions. And if we don't know the answers, we're happy to find out who might know for you. Most of the time you can refer to your grant awards as grant funding provided by the Community Foundation or funded in part by the Community Foundation. Most, if not, or all of your grant awards are helping to support funding from many different contributors, whether it's your individual donors or other foundations. And so we want to make sure that you're not only acknowledging our funding, but all of your funding. It's a good way to remind your constituents and the community about all of the many great groups and individuals that support your work. The original grant agreement letter that you received lists the fund or funds that made your grant available. In many cases, it might be 1, 2, or 3 funds. Just we often see on social media or in a news announcement an acknowledgement of those 3 funds. We give you that information so that you are very aware of the donors that have established funds at the Community Foundation to support our grant making. And we are greatly appreciative for their efforts because they recognize that the more funds that we have that pool for our competitive application process, the more we're able to do in the community. And so we really like to give them a shout out. We also have, as you know, 10 committees that work in this process. Many of them are field of interest funds. And so we like to acknowledge those, particularly those that are very specialized. It could be a fund for animals, or it could be a fund for a town. And that's a good way to let those groups know that there is a fund available that supports works that you're doing in the community. The check letters that you are about to receive or getting ready to mail your grant checks out will only have a reference to funded by or funded in part by the Community Foundation. And we do ask you to refer back to your original grant agreement for the list of funds. For those that may have several funds that made your grant possible, we also recognize there's not always room to list all of those. We let you know what those funds are because it is a pooling process. We have a lot of funds of varying sizes, and they all pool together to help support grant awards, and we like to let you know who they are. We don't expect every time you acknowledge the grant to list out all of those funds, particularly because you probably don't always have room for that. But we do appreciate whenever you say thank you. But you can also send us, if you send a thank you email or letter or note, we do make sure to share it out with the donors that established those funds for our use in our process. If you haven't had an opportunity to visit yet, please note, if you have if for those that have been through this process before, if you have bookmarks to certain places on our website, whether it's for the PR toolkit or for your final evaluation, those bookmarks have changed. We thanks to the generous support of Liberty Bank Foundation, A Squared Design Studio, and individual donors, did a big overhaul of our website with a number of enhancements as well as new pathways for certain places on our website. So you will note that the section under nonprofits now has several places, one including resources, where we have our grant guidelines for upcoming cycles. You'll have access to the evaluation as well as the toolkit and the logos for marketing your grant. So if you have bookmarked those in the past, you will need to update those bookmarks because the URLs have changed for each of those sections. And we did update those in the letters, both your grant agreement letter. No, I take that back. Your grant agreement letter would have had the old ones. Your new letter coming out with your check will have the new URLs for each of those sections. Again, the Grantee Communications Kit is available on the website. If you are new to us, we strongly encourage you to download that. It's got some tips, some expectations, suggestions about ways to thank the Community Foundation or acknowledge the Community Foundation for your award. You can also find the logo there. Now, if you're doing something that requires a very high-res version of the logo, please email either Mary or myself, and we can get you that file. But for most usage, whether it's a flyer, it's on your website, it's on social media, the Community Foundation logo file that's available for download on our website is sufficient in size and resolution for the majority of the ways you may need it. There are a few of you here who received funding through a partnership that the Community Foundation has with GSB, formerly Guilford Savings Bank. We are so honored that Guilford Savings Bank, now GSB, has chosen to work through community foundations within their footprint to help in their grant making. And so they provide us funding each year to pool into our competitive process. So those that received funding in part from the Community Foundation and in part from GSB through us, we do have a logo that you can use that recognizes their continued commitment not only to community foundations. They recognize that we have the expertise in grant making, we have the connections in the community, and that we acknowledge their generous commitment. But we also want to make sure that your community knows that GSB continues its investment in its footprint. So that one is also available on our website. When to and how to use the logo. For those that are new to us, you'll see 3 logo formats here. For those that have been through this, you know what our preferences are, but I'm going to touch on them for everyone's benefit. Our preferred logo is the one front and center that not only has our acronym, our full name, but our tagline. That is the one to use whenever possible because that underlines the Community Foundation's mission and commitment to our community as well as our name and the nickname or acronym that we often use. We also know that there are cases when you need to use a smaller version and it becomes very hard to read that bottom tagline. We never want that tagline to be so small that no one can read it because then everybody spends too much time trying to figure out what it is or it gets very frustrating. So we have an alternate version that removes the tagline. You just need to let us know if, and we're happy to send that to you. There are cases when you don't have a lot of space for the full logo. We know it's a long name and it's a pretty big logo. The acronym is fine in the circle itself. We can provide that. However, when you use that, we do ask that somewhere in close proximity to where you're using that circle acronym logo, you mention the full name of the community foundation. We're very excited and always pleased to know that more and more people are beginning to recognize the circle logo with just the acronym. But for many people, they still are not familiar enough with it for it to automatically make sense that it's the Community Foundation of Middlesex County. We do have some special logos for certain funders. For example, our Fund for Women and Girls, the Sarah A. Rosenbaum Fund. If you would like that logo, you just need to send either Mary or myself an email, and we're happy to provide that. We're working on one specialized logo for the Janvrin Fund. For the moment, those that receive funding through the Janvrin Fund, you're more than welcome to use the standard Community Foundation logo. And when we have the new logo for that fund, for their grants, will be able to have access to that. These are predominantly, our fund has one, but you're also just always welcome to use the standard Community Foundation logo. You are not required to use a specialized logo. Okay, ways that you help us thank the donors who have helped to make your grants possible. Stories, articles, and photos are always our favorite things to receive. And we so appreciate when you share those, because we share those out not only with the specific donors that may have established the fund that made your grant possible, but we also, as many of you know, will use them in our e-news. And we use if you go through the website, you'll see many grantees are used to visualize pages on our website. And then, of course, right now we're working on our community report. So for those of you that have had grants in the past year through our process, if you have new photos to send, please be sure you send them, because we are collecting photos to use in our next report to the community that should be out hopefully in the next month or so. Thank you cards and letters. You'll see that with the photo here in the on the slide deck is one of our favorites. We loved this one. It was so much fun. This is a huge laminated thank you card that we received from Bealfield Elementary for support for a sensory garden that they were building. So that was such a wonderful example. And we took a photo of it and scanned it in and sent it off to the committee. And it hangs in one of our offices because we just love it so much and it's very cheerful. And we move it to the conference room if donors are coming in to meet with us, because it's a great way to show that the community at large really appreciates everything anyone does. Videos are always a lot of fun. If you haven't been on our video page, we encourage you to do that. We've had very short virtual highlights and quick messages from many nonprofits in the past, and we love to share those. If you have your own YouTube channel or Vimeo channel, if you send us that link, we can upload that. We can also share it out with donors in our e-news. And if you don't have one, we do have a YouTube channel, and we're happy to post your video for you and then send you a direct URL that you can use as well. We are trying very hard to get back to doing in-person site visits. We do ask for a little bit of notice on those, particularly as we are working with committees and board members and other volunteers. So it does take a little planning, but if you have an opportunity to come and visit, we're happy to do that. We're also happy to set up a virtual site visit. Those are fun. Sometimes those are easier for everyone involved. And if you have an idea for a virtual site visit, we're happy to also provide the Zoom link to do that. And we can even help by recording it if you'd like us to. And then, of course, the evaluation narrative, which we'll get into in a few minutes, we'll discuss that, is another way to help us explain to the community what the impact of grant funding is. All of this ties into ways to show, we all know that people are struggling right now, and that fundraising is one of the highest priorities as well as one of the highest concerns, because there are shifts in how we communicate. So this is a way for us to connect people with the nonprofits, because when you make that connection, it could be that someone knows you, but they didn't know that we were making grants. But also those that are very familiar with the Community Foundation may be meeting your organization the first time because they follow us. And when you tag us in social medias or you send us stories and articles and we reshare those, it's an opportunity to introduce many people to your organization, often for the first time. We welcome stories anytime. You do not have to wait for the final evaluation. If something fabulous is happening and you are letting your followers know about it, feel free to cover copy us on that email or forward it to us after you send it out. We also have a very easy form, short form on our website that you can use to give us a quick update. You can just copy and paste information into a narrative box. You can upload photos. You don't have to wait until your program is complete to share any updates. If you want, if something fabulous happens or unexpected, or it was just a really, really fabulous day in the office and you want to let us know, please do. We love those. And then we're happy to reshare those wonderful messages out. You can do it by email as well. Mary and I are always happy to receive your emails. We use your stories, as I mentioned, in a variety of ways. We use them in our e-newsletters and our email updates. We will share them out on social media, either as stories, new posts on our social media. If you tag us because you're sharing a story that's important to you, we search for those. We do keep an eye out for those. And we do try to reshare those to help raise awareness about the great things that you're doing. You're always welcome to write letters to the donors and fund representatives. We will forward those on. We also make, our board of directors meets 6 times a year. And during the grants committee section, we always provide updates and reports. And we use that as an opportunity to highlight outcomes or ongoing success stories from grants that the board has approved. It's a good way to help the board see the impact of the funding that they're approving, as well as understand the wide variety of nonprofits working in our community, because then they become everyone's ambassadors as they are out in the community and talking about not only their board service with the Community Foundation, but the question they get most frequently is, so what is a community foundation and what does it do? So as we update them on the status of your grants and your success stories and share your photos and videos with them, it gives them tangible things that if they're in a specific community or with a specific group, they can say, well, for example, such and such nonprofit just said, let us know this. And they are talking about something that is really that really touches people's hearts, as well as helps to raise awareness about your organizations as they're out talking about the work of the Community Foundation. As I mentioned, we are working on our annual report to the community. We always need stories and photos for that. So for those that have had past grant awards, this is an opportunity to help us share as we do highlights from the last, from calendar year 2023 or into the spring of 2024 of things that have been happening. And for those going forward that may be new to us, as you get those stories and updates to us, we do tag those so that we'll have them ready for the next report to the community. And then, of course, as I mentioned on our website, we're always looking for opportunities to add stories and news posts to our website, as well as keep photos circulating and add new photos as they come in. Many of you may have at-risk populations, and we always get a question of how do we show at-risk? Are your grant that supports an at-risk population or a group, such as a lot of kids, that you don't necessarily want their faces out there? So here are some examples of past grantees that have worked really hard to find ways to highlight what they do without putting anyone at risk. One of our favorites, obviously, was Read to Grow, when the Bookmobile visited Middletown, and we supported having that come in, and they lined the kids up and had them hold the books in front of their faces. It was a great way to show kids and what they were doing with a grant that supported giving each of them a book without putting any of those children at risk. Of course, our soup kitchens and pantries have wonderful volunteers who often will stand in photos to help add people to the great work that's going on through those. Or of course, there, as the one in the corner shows, quite a line of fresh produce that was coming into the soup kitchens and pantries. If you use stock photos in your stories because you work with at-risk populations and you send it to us as a complete story, all we ask is that you ensure that you have the correct licensing. For those that may not know what I mean by that, if you use a stock photo site that actually license the photo for use in a broad range of things, you know it's secure, you know there are no copyright infringements. If you just go out to the web and you punch in and you type in a bunch of keywords and you pick photos out that just appear in the image catalogs, they could be on other people's sites, they could have copyrights, and I will also tell you, always be careful if you do that, because they can also be embedded with dangerous things. So it's always good to use a stock photo site. It's worth signing up for one of those or several of those. Canva is another one that's very safe. They have a lot of stock photos. These are just some more examples of how we've shared good news, obviously on our website, stories in our community report. We also, for those organizations that are in the Essex or Shoreline Events Magazine's footprints, we periodically get requests from events magazines when they have an extra space to fill, and they do provide that to us. So we often repurpose stories about grants that we have made to a specific organization in that town. So this is a great way sometimes for us to be able to highlight it. We also have a monthly column, and we try to share good news out through that about the different ways our grant making is supporting our communities. Video ideas have become very popular and very easy to do. We get lots of thank you videos, both on social media as well as links. What we do ask is don't try to email us a video file. It's way too big to come through our email system. But you can use a share site to get those to us if you have created them, or if you have your own YouTube channel, just send us the URL and we can use that. We have several examples on our website of ways that nonprofits have used a very short video, 30 seconds to 2 minutes, to highlight the funding that we've provided and the impact that it makes. And once again, I'm going to pitch our video page. If you haven't been out there or to our YouTube channel, please do. I know Tracy is on here with Futures, and that was one of the fabulous examples that we got. They sent us a short thank you video where they were showing off a program that we supported a few years ago, and they had members of their team talking about what the impact was, and that was a lot of fun. We really liked that one. We like all of them. They're all wonderful. Our donors love them. They get a big kick out of seeing what you're doing, and they like the behind the scenes stuff too. That's the most popular, I think. Mary's email address is programs@middlesexcountycf.org, and mine obviously is thayer@middlesexcountycf.org. Please send us links to cloud share platforms or your YouTube channel URL or other platform URL if you're doing video filing. It will not come through if you just attach it as you do with, and if you have a lot of photos, if you have more than say 3 or 4 photos, file sharing platforms are much easier to get those to us. We do keep a cap on the size of video files that will come through. I really want to stress copyright and privacy for a moment. We take privacy very seriously. So if you are sending us photos, please be sure that, and they are photos of your programs that show people participating in your programs, please be sure that you have had conversations with those people to know that so that they know their photos could potentially be used publicly. When you send us a photo for use, we are presuming, and we will often follow up and ask the question if it doesn't clearly state in your email that the photo has been cleared for public use. We're very cognizant that some people do not want their photos used on social media or in our community report or on our website. And we really appreciate that, and we try to respect that. So we do ask that you confirm with us that you do have releases to use your photos publicly. And once again, if you use a stock photo website, did you purchase the license that allows you to use that across media platforms? And you didn't just do a Google search and sort of snip the photo that popped up. Also, when you're sharing stories with us, we know that not everyone wants their name used in a story, particularly those that work with at-risk communities. You are more than welcome to change the names in your stories. We get many stories from nonprofits working with at-risk communities where they have changed the name or they use just a first name on those. Whoops. And then videos. So the biggest thing to keep in mind about videos, if you are using videos or making videos, whether for us or just for yourself, and you are using music, please be sure that you have the license to use that music. The best example I can give you is that we had a wonderful nonprofit create this fabulous video for us with lots of kids sending us thank you messages, and they were holding up signs and they were showing all the activities they did in the program. And in the background was ongoing music. So they sent us they used a share platform and they sent us the whole video file so that we could upload it to our YouTube channel and use it. And when I tried to upload it to YouTube, YouTube refused to post it because the music was copyrighted and there was not a copyright release in the underlying audio file. So we couldn't use the video. We couldn't do anything with it because we had no way to post it. So if you love Taylor Swift, if you are a Swiftie, you have to have permission to put Taylor Swift's music in your videos. You can, and if you use alternate video sites that don't search for copyright permissions on certain music files, people will find you. So you have to be really careful in doing that. Okay, so if you are sending us videos and they have music, please make sure you build it on a platform that is going to ensure that you have copyright permission and licensing permission for that music. There are many sites out there that offer good free music or low cost music, but often free music, but particularly to nonprofits for background music in videos. And we use it, use it in many of our videos where we do photo highlights. And we also use it where we got the music for our Meaningful Monday podcast opening and closing section. So please be sure you use licensed music. Okay, I'm going to pause for a minute before we launch into evaluations to see if there are any questions on the PR side of things, or if anyone has ideas of other good ways to acknowledge not only us, but your funders in general. This is an opportunity for everybody to take a break and chime in. Emma?
Hi, yeah, thanks. I'm just wondering, if our organization doesn't, our work isn't really easy to photograph or take videos of, is it possible to send in just written testimonials from participants?
Always, definitely. And if we use those, we'll often use your logo. Particularly, we've done that in our community reports before. If we use a story that came out of something that you were doing and it's from a nonprofit, a testimonial nonprofit, we'll often visualize that with your logo as well.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Christine?
Yes, good morning. Hi. I had a question about the share site you were talking about. When we send videos with our business, we use WeTransfer, or we just copy the link to the video. Can we do that and send it by email to Mary?
Yes, definitely. If you do one, so the one thing that we have noticed, that's perfect, because there are lots of different share sites out there. Google does one, Dropbox, we transfer. The biggest thing is if you haven't done this, if you share them for people to look at, you don't have to worry about this. But if it's a site that wants to make sure that your videos are protected unless you give someone the option to download, you just have to make sure that you have the permission to download feature turned on, because otherwise we can't pull it down. I had a problem with that on a Google video sharing platform. Someone had not given me quote unquote editor rights, which meant that I couldn't download it until they did that. So just check your settings.
Okay, one other quick question on the photo permission. We are planning to have a sign-in sheet for our participants. Can we make a note on there and call that to their attention so that if they've signed in and checked a box that says photos okay, that will suffice for permission?
Yes, and good for you. And even whether it's you're sending us photos or just using photos yourself, it is always important, particularly these days, to make sure that people know that the photos that you're taking could potentially even be used publicly for you. And I stress this because here's the example. Pre-COVID, we were doing a special workshop, and we had a number of nonprofit employees in the room at the workshop. And at the end of it, I asked if we could take a group photo to use in our community report to highlight the workshop participants. And it turned out that a member or an employee of a nonprofit was actually a domestic violence victim. And if I had not asked that and just taken photos and then put her face out there, I would never have known that, and I could have been putting her at risk. So it was great because as soon as I asked, she piped up and said, I'm going to step out so that you can take the photo. And I so appreciated that, because it also meant we could go back through our other photos and make sure that we were not accidentally showing her face in any photos. So across the board, it's always a good thing to do.
Thank you.
Robin.
So if a grant does have some support from GSB, but it's not through a GSB specific application, should we use the GSB combo logo?
You can, yes.
Okay.
You're not required to, but you know us. We are so deeply appreciative the fact that GSB has chosen to work through its community foundations, that even grants where they are only one of maybe 2 or 3 funders, we always like in some way to give them a shout out, because it does ensure that the community knows that they continue to invest in the community. They've just chosen to do it differently than other corporations or banks.
Thank you.
Any other questions or things I've forgotten? So for those of you that have been through this with me before for this first piece, if I forgot to mention something, type up and don't ever hesitate to remind me. You know me, I like to be reminded of things. Okay. We will venture into the joyous world of evaluation, right? Everybody loves that word. And so for those that are new to us, I am going to ask those that have been through our processes before, Robin, Lori, Bob, you're all out there, to chime in and reassure everyone that, at least in my, I hope, I always hear this from people, that we are not an onerous evaluation entity. It's a great way to tell stories and to give us final updates, let us know the outcomes. I will stress we are not the only ones that obviously have evaluations. I'm sure you have other funders that in some way, shape, or form want to know the outcomes of their support. And here's why. So you are asking people to support through grants or other donations, right? And so they like to know that they're actually helping you make a difference. That's what their goal is. It touches their hearts. It's their passion. It could show good community connection for, if it's a corporate funder. So you help them know that their ongoing support is actually making a difference to your mission. But we have a responsibility as a funder. So you don't have direct connection with all the many, many, many people over the years that have made contributions to all of our pool of endowed funds that provide funding for grants. But we still have a connection with many of them. So when we get your evaluations and we can then report that back out to various funds, we are fulfilling our responsibility of donor intent. The donors made the contributions to the funds for the competitive process with the expectation that we would continue our mission of supporting your work. That's our responsibility to report back on that. So I can say, oh, look, yay. In the spring of 2024, we made 35 grants totaling, shame on me, I think it was 180,000. Mary, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But that's just sort of the really basic thing. So when we can report back on the outcomes that we read in your evaluations, then we can really emphasize to those donors that their commitment to ensuring that we're able to make grants and we're able to support our nonprofits is continuing missions forward with current and future impacts. That helps them see the connection, feel the connection, and continue their ongoing support. Our donors are really interested in getting to know you. They want to know how you're improving or impacting life for their neighbors, their communities, maybe even that specific person. Our partners are interested in as well. So let's use GSB as an example. GSB has put their trust in us to fund nonprofits using money that they are investing in the community by sending it to us to pool in with our other funds. So we need to report back to them periodically on the actual impact so that they can then use those stories and report back to the community that they have made such and such impact through their grant making through the Community Foundation in Middlesex County, and this is how many organizations. So we're using it with our partners as well. And then obviously we're updating our committees and boards. We always get the question, when should we do the evaluation? When is it due? We know that certain funders say you have to do an evaluation within 1 year, or it has to be 6 months or whatever. We recognize that a lot of it depends on what you're using your funding for. So maybe it's going to take 14 months to complete your project. All right, so the final evaluation is due when the project is done. But you can, because that's the reason we stress doing periodic updates, right? Or if something phenomenal happens and you don't want to wait for the final evaluation to let us know, send us that email or fill out the update form that we have on the website, whatever's easiest for you. Formal evaluations are at the end of your grant program, whatever you are requesting funding for, or if it's general operating grants, it could be at the end of your fiscal year, or it could be at the start of the process where you may be seeking another competitive grant from us. So whichever one comes first. Many people, many groups, so this cycle, the grant funding is coming out in July, right? Maybe you're on a fiscal year and your fiscal year started July 1st. So technically your final evaluation, if it's general operating or capacity support, could be next June 30th at the end of your fiscal year. Or it could be in December if you wanted to give us a mid-year update. But if you're going to choose to apply in the next competitive grant cycle, because in the fall we always start from zero again, you would need to give us at least an interim or a final evaluation. General operating could be a final evaluation at that point because you could be a quarter or a quarter plus into your fiscal year. And we know your funding comes from lots of places. But most of the time, if it's general operating, it's the end of your fiscal year with interim updates in between if we need them, or at the end of your program. And the evaluation form is now on our website. And don't forget, if you have bookmarked for the past grantees, you will need to update your URL because now you hover over the nonprofit section, you'll see resources and there's a grant evaluation page. Oh, and good look at this. Mary is on top. I have to give Mary a lot of credit. Mary went through and updated everything through the PowerPoint, and I completely forgot that she did this. So Mary, I'm going to give you a big shout out for being 5 steps ahead of me. So once again, if you hover over nonprofits, our website works on drop-down menus, or if you're on tablets, you may just need to click the menu piece. And there is a specific section page for now for the evaluations. We have not done an update to actually embed the budget line by line into the evaluation form, because sometimes that's people need a lot more space than what we can accommodate in that. So you are required to submit a final budget to actual with your grant evaluation. Let me please stress this, because this happened a lot last year with the evaluations, and we were having to follow up and get new budget forms. The budget budget expectations form that you used in your application is not the one that you will submit with your final evaluation. You need to download the budget to actual summary form. What it shows is your original estimated budget and then what the actual costs were. So it gives two columns to complete rather than just the one. Because we want to know what you budgeted, but then we want to know what the actual cost, because we know that sometimes your estimations will alter due to changes in the program, changes in the needs of the organization or their clientele attending the project, other little hurdles that may happen. So you download the budget form, you complete that, save it as a PDF, and then you upload it in your evaluation report. And there's a section you'll see where you upload it as a PDF. And just like the application, the budget report must be uploaded in a PDF, not in a Word document. Once again, for those that are new to this, I want to stress this because this will be new, but you saw it. It's just like on the application. We do have a save and continue option in the evaluation form. Just like applications, if you use save and continue, it's a temporary link and it is valid for 30 days. The end of 30 days, if you have not submitted your evaluation, poof, it's gone. I can't get it back for you. You can't get it back. So don't start your evaluation until you're actually getting ready to submit your evaluation. Okay, because the temporary links last 30 days. So when you're on the evaluation form, just like the application form, at the bottom will be an option to save and continue later. Just like the application form, you will get a pop-up and it will give you the hyperlink. That's a temporary site where you can input your email address so it will send it to you. And Lori Lodge, you are on this, and I give you so much credit for this, because this is what you told everybody several cycles ago in a workshop when I asked for the best way to remember where your link is. So here's Lori's piece of advice. Lori suggested that people draft some of their responses or all of their responses, whether it's for the application or the evaluation, in a word processing platform like Word, Microsoft Word, or Apple's, what is it? Notes or what are Pages, I'm sorry. And in the header or at the top of your page, when you get this link, you copy it and you paste it there. And that way you always have it with what you're drafting. You never have to worry about going back and finding the email, but you can do that as well. Or reaching out to me and saying, Fair, I can't find the link to my evaluation. Can you get it for me? Because I can't. It's on a temporary server. I cannot see your evaluations until you submit them. I can't, it's a temporary server I don't have access to. So I can't stress this enough. Just like working on the application, please, when you're doing evaluation, make sure you copy this link and email it to yourself as well. But paste it somewhere, whether it's in the little sticky notes on your computer, the electronic sticky notes, or in your Word document where you're drafting your responses so that you have it. When you are replying to the evaluation, you should be referring back to your original application, because you should be tying what you hoped to accomplish in your application, what your original goals and objectives were, to your actual outcomes. Same thing with how many you served and who they were. If you, and sometimes you're gonna serve less and sometimes you're gonna serve more. So there's no like, I always get questions. Well, what if we thought we were gonna serve 80 and we only ended up serving 40? Well, that's okay. That happens. Just talk about why. Maybe it was just poor time, there was too much going on, and so attendance was down. Maybe there was lots of bad weather and not as many people were coming out. Maybe it sounded like it was in a project that everyone would really love, but when it came down to it, really it was only a few that really needed it, but they got so much out of it because, and then you go on to talk about what the impacts were. So just because when you quantify impact, it could be lower or higher is not a good or a bad thing. It's just the reality, where you know that you estimate at the front end and you have actual outcomes at the back end. Did you serve the populace you identified in your application? So your evaluation should always tie into your original application, showing your goals and objectives. What were the final outcomes? Once again, I get this question of what's the difference between a programmatic grant and a capacity or general operating? So in many respects, it could be the same, right? Because you have general operating money helping to make your programs effective. It just means that when you made a request of us, you wanted our grant, if it's a programmatic or a project-based grant, to specifically go to this one thing. And that it has a beginning, middle, and end. That's what you're going to report on. That's what you requested in your application. You gave us a timeline, beginning, middle, end. Here's what the outcomes were. When you ask for capacity or general support, you're doing the same thing in essence, because it's telling us we have 1, 2, or 3 programs, and we are pooling our operating resources to make those programs come to fruition. So when you write those evaluations, you should be speaking directly to what you did programmatically through your organization. What did a general operating grant help your organization accomplish? Joyce, I'm going to use cattails because it's a perfect example. I'm not picking on you, but it is a really good example. Many, many years ago, when cattails first applied to us, they applied specifically for the TNR program, trap, neuter, release, right? So every year we would get specific details only on that project because that was the project that the grant was for, and that was great, and that was a very clear-cut evaluation. This grant is more of a general operating for cattails. That could include TNR, that could include food, that could include medical bills, that could include medication. So this time in an evaluation, Joyce and her fellow volunteers at Cattails have other stories to tell us about the impact of that grant. But it's all going into what it is that makes Cattails a great organization. Joyce, do you want to chime in?
Oh, thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
The grant last year was for general operating.
Yep.
And we wanted it to actually put a barn on what we call a roof on the barn, which we call a barn, which is an old horse track barn, which when cats come into us from a feral cat situation or trapped through Middletown or Cromwell Animal Control that are sick or need to be evaluated before they are trapped, neutered, and returned, or they come into our program as a long-term cat or to be adopted or fostered, the barn needed a roof because it was leaking and we needed air conditioning and all sorts of kinds of things. It was a tremendous opportunity to do that. And we were so appreciative because we had a number of hoarding situations last year where I would say probably over the course of a year, 100 cats went through.
Right.
And does that help?
No, it does. And so that's a really good example, right? So if you think about what they were doing, you have the TNR program, you have medical examinations, you have food, you have all of your cat litter, everything else. So that's why we say to people, if it's a general support, think about what you are doing. What is your mission and how are you meeting it? So you're giving us you're giving us a variety of impact numbers, but it's not that different because a lot of times people get very anxious about how to evaluate the general operating support grant, or how to tell stories about general operating support grants. And that's why we always say, instead of just asking for one specific program, you're actually asking for support for a variety of programs and the people it takes to get those programs done. So you can still share your stories with us and you still send us lots of wonderful videos or photos because you're showing, but you're speaking to the fact, which is also helps with your donors. So we all know what is the one type of contribution that is the most difficult to get, right? It's the unrestricted contribution. Because everybody has the thing, they like tangible things, they like things they can touch, they like things that they can see, they like things that photograph well. So we always say, if you speak in your evaluations and your stories about the work that you do and how a general operating grant helps you accomplish all of this work, you are giving donors the tangible that they need, the touch points they need, the visuals they need to say, ooh, I helped save that cat, or ooh, I helped send that child to camp, or ooh, I got to go to this education program, right? All the while stressing to them that by giving you the flexibility, it means that you're getting all of this stuff accomplished. So, when it comes time to do your evaluations, for those particularly that had general support, if you're struggling with that, just reach out to Mary or reach out to me, and we're happy to help talk that through, because we know that sometimes it can be overwhelming. It also sometimes can be really overwhelming because you start to try to tell too many stories and lose sight of the purpose of evaluation. For those that are new to us, here is what you will see. We have check boxes, quantifiable boxes, measurable boxes, but then we also have narrative sections. The narrative sections tie back to your applications, and they are very specific. We want to know about the impact within the organization. We do want to know if you had to make any adjustments. And I will give Christine a big shout out. She's already sent in her email with some adjustments that they were making, and we appreciated that because it was great. It was perfectly fine with us. We know that from the point of submitting your application to the point of actually doing your program project or at the calendar point, things change. That happens. Adjustments are natural. We're always interested in what you had to adjust, how you came to the point of knowing you needed to adjust, and what was the effect it had. Were you able still to implement? Was it a bigger hurdle than you thought you might have? Did it require a significant alteration of what you thought was needed in the community versus what the community actually came back and said, no, this is what we need? And then, of course, how you feel your overall success was. I can tell you most narratives are like, oh, it was a great success. We get that, okay? And we want it to be a great success. But was it more successful or less successful? Did it have a greater impact, or was it about the same impact that you evaluate or you imagined? But then that last one is often where we don't get much feedback, particularly because I think most people don't think about this. What are your post-grant plans? Was this a one-time? You will never do it again because it was a one-time. It met a very specific need at a single point in time. If that's the case, sometimes that happens. But did you have other ideas that came out of it? Did you find out that there were new things that you didn't know about? So you may not be doing that program again, but did it provide you an opportunity to find out actually maybe new programs that you might want to do? Different activities. Is it something that is ongoing and it has worked really smoothly and there are just, it's like boom, boom, boom. You didn't have to worry about it. No adjustments necessary. It just works the best way it always has, and you're just going to keep on doing it because everybody seems to love it. That's perfectly fine. But it's interesting because post-grant plans, I think, is the one question that often gets many people a little anxious because they're thinking, oh, are we supposed to have it? No, you're not. But what we're asking is, as you went through your program or as you're going through your daily operations, have you thought about what's happening going forward? Are you thinking strategically about going forward and what you might see coming out of your current place in time that you need to address, adjust, or identify going forward. And sometimes projects, programs, and grants help you think about that because you have to write narratives and therefore think forward a little bit more than sometimes I think we all do. And I'm a perfect case and example. You get tied up with everything that has to get done today. It's sometimes hard to think about what might be needed tomorrow. Excuse me. Okay, questions on evaluations? For those that have done evaluations in the past, did I forget something? You can chime in. Emma.
Hi, thanks. I'm just wondering if there's, are we supposed to be releasing a press release or doing social media posts, thanking the foundation, anything like that?
We appreciate that. We encourage that, particularly if it's on social media. Please, you don't have press releases are totally up to you because we know it all depends on what it is that you're doing and if it's something you also want to draw attention to. We do appreciate the public acknowledgements when they happen. We don't say you are required, but we say it is highly appreciated. It's highly appreciated because it highlights that your organization is working in our footprint and supporting our footprint. And it also helps identify the community foundation's ongoing support of programs and services through a variety of nonprofits, particularly those that people don't think about. And it can help actually drive calls to us of people wanting to know more, either in general about what we do, or maybe other nonprofits that they don't know about because they happen to know about you and what else is going on that maybe they should get involved in. So we do ask if it's on social media that you tag us because it then obviously populates in our feeds a lot faster and we can see it. And I will say I have to give Mary a huge shout out because she is our social media guru and is phenomenal at this. She is really good about seeing them and sharing them out with messages to those people who follow us, which can also raise awareness about your organization to groups that may not know you're there. As I said, we always appreciate you following. Oh, I'm going to give a pitch too, because you know what, Mary, we forgot to put it in here, but I will pitch. So for those, first of all, when you get the slide deck, for those that may be sitting in for a fellow nonprofit member, staff member or volunteer, and you're new to us and don't have it, you will also have our contact information and we will get you the slide deck. For those that who follow us, thank you very much. We have seen many of you also, we have a new podcast we launched this year. So if you haven't tuned in to Meaningful Mondays, please do, because we have already had wonderful community volunteers, nonprofits, funds, remarkable things, stories that air. It publishes the second and fourth Monday of each month, but it's available on Spotify and it's available on our YouTube channel and our videos page. And we can always, and Mary does a great job putting social media posts out. And we just had we have a huge lineup of future guests, both nonprofits, donors, board members, committee members, and people generally in the public doing really interesting, great things. And it's just a way of helping to share fabulous people. Again, thank you all so much for everything you do. We are so honored to be able to support your work. And we really appreciate what you are doing, boots on the ground in our communities, just truly to make this the best place to live, work, and play.